Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, GamingGang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. This is live stream 1322. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out it's super casual around here. We're just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news, and then I will usually tackle a topic related to our hobby. Now, tonight, I am going to roll out a new series, and it is going to be called Forgotten TTRPG Favorites. And we are going to lead off the festivities with the Morrow Project. Yes, a game that I have some very nice nostalgia for, I must say. And we will get into that in just a bit. Now, should point out that this series is going to feature role-playing games from way back in the day that surprisingly are still around, just maybe not in anybody's memory banks currently. So that is what we're going to do tonight. So, of course, I should also mention, whenever you're not watching videos here on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will never find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. Now, of course, you must be a subscriber to the channel in order to take part in chat, and you must be a subscriber for at least an hour. But if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo. We also have W. Forge, Harvey Chuckles, Zarquan, sometimes in the winter, and Spryle. I believe that is somebody who's maybe making a first-time visit here in chat. The nickname doesn't ring a bell. Said, Nexus, the Infinite City is high on their list, an underrated 90s gem, sadly long out of print. I gotta be honest, I don't even think I know what Infinite City is. The only Infinite City I can think of is the tile laying game that was from AEG way back in the day. Oh, there we go. It's Scott Pyle. Not a first timer. It's like, damn it, Jeff, I'm no newbie around here, you silly host. Well, good to see you once again, Scott. Keith Olu is also with us tonight, as is Arcane Magus. Or Magus. It is Magus, isn't it? Yeah, it's Magus. What the hell I know what I'm thinking. I've been playing some more Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. That's why it's Magus, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Harvey Chuckle says, it's no secret they're an FGU fan. Notice it looks like there's some new stuff to Aftermath floating around. Here's the thing. If I remember correctly, because I stumbled across that a couple months back. Because, yeah, I actually Also have a soft spot for Fantasy Games Unlimited. And if I remember correctly, the new stuff that's out uses AI. And you know how I feel about it. You know how I feel about AI. So I'll have to take a look again because honestly, I could see maybe doing an aftermath. Well, I don't know if that would be the next episode of the series. We're not going to do this like, more than a couple of times a month. But I don't know if I want to go back to back with post-apocalyptic. That's the right topics. Space opera. Oh, Bushido. And I'm pretty sure you can still get Bushido in PDF. In fact, I think you can get it print on demand. Maybe we'll do Bushido next. There you go. There you go. We'll talk about this stuff as we finish up the news and that, because I have had some emails and comments from people asking about certain games, maybe making the series. Some I certainly could see, others I will not, mainly because of the publishers. But anywho, I do see that Kevin R. Smith and Cooperative Waffles have joined us, and the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows tonight. We missed her. I was going to say, I don't think Sarah made it into last night's show, or if she did, maybe kind of snuck on in late. But good to see you again, Sarah. Nice to always have you wielding the banhammer, the glittery banhammer. So I wouldn't be surprised if the madman is off playing games tonight. So you might only have our one chat moderator. All right, so let's jump on into the news, because there is a new edition of the Western role-playing game Frontier Scum, which has arrived from Free League Publishing. Here's the latest. A self-destructive, violent, and LSD-infused take on spaghetti westerns, Frontier Scum casts players as wanted outlaws making their mark on the unreal lost frontier. Inspired by films including El Topo, Dead Man, and Bone Tomahawk, I'd have to say that's a pretty varied lineup there. The game offers a rough and tumble world of insatiable greed, strange relics, bounties, odd jobs, and danger around every corner. Inside the hardback edition, players will find core rules and an introduction to the Lost Frontier, character creation guidelines, including guns and stolen horses, the complete adventure, escape the Oregon Rail. You wonder if that's set in Oregon. As well as tables and tools for NPCs, hunting, carousing, bounties, odd jobs, loot, and strange relics. Now, this is an expanded rule book. In fact, this is Frontier Scum More Rulebook Edition. That is really the title of it. And it also includes 19 additional backgrounds for a total of 31 name tables and optional rules for gun hands. The More Rulebook Edition of Frontier Scum with PDF carries an MSRP of $39.99. If you want just PDF alone, it is $19.99 over at Drive-Thru RPG. And yes, Free League Publishing is going to be sending me a review copy. So, strangely enough, it seems as if a lot of publishers lately they're not trying to get review copies in the hands of reviewers ahead of release. Now, Frontier Scum's been around for quite a while, and it's pretty well regarded as far as I understand. I don't know why they wouldn't just try to get it into just have it sent out when the retail editions are hitting stores. I don't know. So yes, Harvey Chuckles says the newer stuff for Aftermath has AI generated content. That sucks hard. Womp, womp, womp. That's why I haven't shared any of it. So I haven't shared news of it because I was like, oh, cool. I think it popped up when I was looking at Drive-Thru RPG and just because I'll normally pop in every day or so to see what's new, right? And I think that had popped, I think a couple of adventures popped up as new. And for one, the artwork was kind of like that digitized artwork from like the 90s almost. That was like, And I thought, well, is it got AI generated content? Sure enough, I was like, God damn. Clontos has joined us in chat. Welcome aboard. On our next news piece, this month is going to see the release of the latest supplement for Old Gods of Appalachia from Monte Cook Games. And here's what I know about Come Hell or High Water. Hearth, Home, and Horror. Adventures in sites familiar, eerie, and eerily familiar. You know the rule of three, don't you? Well, this book brings you 3 adventurous additions to your Old Gods of Appalachia game. Several complete adventures ready to pick up and run. A handful of new sites that conveniently bring Appalachian detail to your campaign. And an in-depth look at some of the locales you know and love from the podcast, written by the creators themselves. And like all rules of 3, there's a little surprise tucked in as well. A chapter all about crafting your own adventures, filling in with chills, engaging twists, and the haunting authenticity your players will love. Each of these sections is full of dangers and delights, sure to entrance and enthrall your players, and maybe possibly, dare we say almost certainly, give them a scare or 4. Inside this book, you'll find great advice for building your own adventures for your Old Gods campaign or any horror game. Familiar sites like the Walker House, the Clutch, and the Devil's Divide, fully fleshed out for use in your game and written by Camp Collins and Steve Shell, the creators of Old Gods of Appalachia. Additional sites ready to be placed anywhere in your campaign, each oozing with atmosphere and detail. Visit a factory town, venture into a haunted wood, or stay at the hotel beside the drowned lake. Each site is meticulously detailed to breathe life into your alternate Appalachia. 3 complete full-length adventures, Monsters Among Us, Dr. Nathaniel's Traveling Marvelment, and Special Delivery are included. The 128-page hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $44.99 when it lands in stores this month. Yes. You know, it's kind of funny. I had reached out to my contact over at Monte Cook Games. This was after I did the interview with Bruce R. Cordell and Shauna Germain, and they were going to send some new stuff from Monte Cook Games. Have not seen it because I think there's another. I guess the Magnus Archives got a release not too long ago. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to check this out because I did like the Old Gods of Appalachia role-playing game. In fact, funny enough, I liked the role-playing game. I tried to get into the podcast, but I just didn't. I was like, I think it was mainly because I could tell that they had gone back to the early episodes after, I guess, the podcast got fairly popular, and they were trying to monetize those episodes. And man, they were really trying to monetize those. It's like, wow. Anywho, but I dig the role-playing game. Moving right along, the Player's Guide for Warhammer, the Old World role-playing game, is making its way into stores, and I've got the lowdown from Cubicle 7 Games. Welcome to the world of legend. The Empire is locked in unending war. Beyond the light of civilization, its armies clash with furious beastmen, marauding orc and goblin tribes, and accursed sorcerers. Perhaps you thought yourself safe from such horrors, far from the front lines, hidden behind tall walls and lofty promises. Such lies no longer comfort you. You've seen the face of true evil, the corruption of chaos, the dead returned to life, or the blind and grasping greed of the Empire's own citizens. Worse, that evil has seen you too, and marked you as a witness to be silenced. To survive, you must find your courage, take up arms, and fight back against the ravening hordes. If fate is kind, you will rise to glory and vanquish your foe. If not, the Garden of Moor will have your corpse. This 192-page hardcover contains everything players need to begin their adventures in Warhammer: The Old World role-playing game. Everything you need to create a character, including 6 origins and 30 iconic careers, from cunning rat catchers. No, I'm a cunning rat catcher, me lord. To tarnished knight exiles. An introduction to the world of legend, the beloved setting of the old world tabletop war game. The grim and glorious rules, a fast-paced, easy-to-learn D10 dice pool system with all the lethality you'd expect of gaming in the old world. Options to customize your character, including 18 skills to advance, dozens of talents and lores to learn, trappings and assets to purchase, and endeavors to pursue in downtime. Rules for magic, both lists of spells your wizard can memorize and rules for casting your own improvised spells. Favors, prayers, and miracles bestowed by 10 of the gods. This book also contains everything needed to explore the world of legend. Should also point out, game masters out there will also need to own a copy of Warhammer: The Old World role-playing game, Game Master's Guide, in order to run Warhammer: The Old World role-playing. This hardcover is arriving in stores right now. It carries an MSRP of $44.99. If you're looking to score just the PDF, you can do so for $24.99 over at Drive-Thru RPG. Yes. Of course, if you order the hardcover from Cubicle 7 Games, you will receive the PDF absolutely free immediately. So once you place your order, you will have that. Nice. Nice. I'm curious about the old world role-playing game. And yes, I am a fan of Wifrip. I really like Wifrip's style. I like the cut of its jib. I think folks know what I mean if they're familiar with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I've pointed it out before that I kind of like the little sprinklings of horror, as well as some of the snarkiness of it. So I wonder if this has that. That's what I'm kind of curious about, because we do have a 5th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay on the horizon. I don't know anything about it outside of, I'm going to guess it's going to still utilize the same mechanics for the most part as 4th edition Wifrip. I can't imagine them utilizing this dice pool system for 5e Wifrip. So maybe they do. I don't know. I know there are people out there who have been asking about a conversion guide for the old world to be able to use like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay adventures and stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. But I would like to check this out. I have reached out to my contact over at Cubicle 7 Games, see if we can get some review copies of some of the releases, because they're all supposed to be hitting stores now. So the player's guide, the game master's guide, the starter set, there's a dice set. So Cooperative Waffle says Ratcatcher as a character starting class was always fun. It's actually one of the best careers because of that dog. I'm trying to remember exactly what it, what is it? Small, mean dog? Something like that is it. So, yes. And they actually, as they advance in the career, they become monster hunters, is essentially what the rat catcher becomes. So, really nice, really cool. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. For the most part, I've enjoyed all the games that have come out from Cubicle 7 Games. There you go. Tessie Trekkie's with us, pointing out, yes, it is a small but vicious dog. And I always picture like a mean little terrier. That's what I always think of. A barky and bitey little terrier as the small but vicious dog. A little more discussion of some old-time role-playing games that are still available. Although Harvey Chuckle's talking about SPI's Dragon Quest. I had that way back in the day. I remember very, very little of it. Cooperative Waffles talking about Elf Quest. I had that as well. From Chaosium Inc., I had the box set. I'll never forget. I remember I picked it up at the game store and then I cracked it out because I had to take a bus when I was, in high school, especially like early on, like freshman year. But I remember I bought it at the game store and I was going home but I had to take a couple of buses altogether. It was about an hour or so, depending on if I caught the bus or if I had to stand around waiting. And I cracked that open and started reading it on the bus. There were all these people on the bus. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to bust out this role-playing game, start checking it out. Cooperative Waffles said they're going to stick to Whiffrip. Kathy Evans has joined us in chat. Welcome. Stacking Limit is also jumping on in, asking, Morrow Project? Yep, well, we get to this stuff after the news. So just so you know, Kevin R. Smith says a terrier would be appropriate for that small but vicious Whiffrip dog, since they were used as rat catchers before cats became common in England. I did not know that. Very nice. Very cool. All right. So moving right along. Currently up for crowdfunding for Elderbrain is Spawns of the Mind Render. And here's the scoop. Enter the frozen mountain realm of Vorden in Spawns of the Mind Render, a massive 600-page dark fantasy campaign for Dungeons & Dragons levels 11 through 15. Explore giant ruins, command war machines, survive brutal battlefields, and uncover far realm horrors that twist reality itself. Featuring 24 new subclasses, 50 original monsters, tactical warfare mechanics, stunning hand-drawn maps, and full virtual tabletop support. This is a sandbox epic where every alliance and decision shapes the fate of a nation descending into madness. So I believe there were some special rewards it's mentioning here. If you backed it in the first 48 hours, I think it's past that. But just so you know, you might want to check it out, because there's like a Mimic Siege Engine dice tower, over 500 virtual tabletop tokens, all extra goodies, or early adapters, I guess we'll say. Vorden is a harsh, awe-inspiring land of towering peaks, frozen valleys, and colossal ruins left by the fallen giant empires of old. Its people, fierce, clan-bound, and proudly misotheistic, thrive without magic, relying instead on engineering, craftsmanship, and the strength of their own hands. Centuries of war and betrayal by zealous fates have forged a culture that prizes skill and endurance above all else, where war machines roll through the passes and beast riders climb cliffs few would dare to ascend. Beneath the surface, remnants of the far realm linger, ancient vaults, forgotten temples, and buried forges where reality itself was once twisted by cosmic influence. Vorden's clans vie for dominance under the watchful eye of King Rulkar Doomhammer VI, whose ambition knows no bounds and threatens to ignite another age of conquest. Among the shattered citadels of the Iron Giants, the fiery halls of the lava-born fire giants, and the haunted shrines of lost tribes, countless secrets lie buried, waiting to be unearthed by those bold enough to seek them. There is a short video that is going to kind of share some kind of cool animation, which I got a kick out of. So why don't you kick back and give it a peek? The Backer Kit project is past the 800% funding mark. And while there is a wide variety of pledge levels, you can begin with the hardcover, which will include the PDF, for a $69 pledge, or you can go digital and score just the PDF for a $29 pledge. And for some strange reason, I did not put when the project comes to an end. If I remember right, I think it's June 3rd, with an expected delivery in November. All that information is actually in the news piece that I shared earlier today. Once again, if you are watching any of the live shows and I talk about something that you're kind of curious about, the news pieces are already up over at thegaminggang.com. Links to everything that you need, all right there. Speaking of visiting thegaminggang.com, so Elderbrain reached out to me and they wanted to kind of test the waters with the Gaming Gang. So they have given me a reference code that I have included in the news piece. So if you check out the news piece where you'll see Spawns of the Mind Render link, that is the reference link. Please use that. So if you're going to go check this out, please stop by thegaminggang.com first, click on the news piece and that link. So because they're going to track that. Just letting you know. I'm not telling you, oh, hey, go use this link. I'm not looking to, screw with people. But if you are going to check this out, because it looks pretty cool. I mean, there's tons of stuff in this crowdfunding project over on Backer Kit. So just mentioning. Clantos asked, am I going to do a review of it? I'm curious if he's asking if I'm doing a review of the Morrow Project or if I'm going to do a review of Warhammer, the Old World role-playing game. If the former, no, because I don't even have a copy of it. But it is going to be our giveaway. I'll explain that in a few moments. But as far as the old world role-playing game, I'm hoping that my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games send some along. They usually send all their releases out. Sometimes I just have to kind of remind them nowadays. All right, Moonrise Long, our final news piece, another crowdfunding project. And the Madman's not with us tonight, but this is something I'm pretty certain he is probably already backed, because currently up on Kickstarter is a new edition of the East Texas University Savage World setting. And I got the deets from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. Study, party, fight evil. So what is ETU? East Texas University is a college horror setting for the Savage Worlds role-playing game. It takes place at a small but renowned college in the fantastic southern climate of Pine Box, Texas. Pine Box has been the epicenter of supernatural disturbances for generations. But nobody really believes in that stuff, so students still flock to ETU thanks to generous scholarships, prestigious courses, and the active social scene. Even if not everyone survives their college experience. Players must contend with annoying roommates, murderous professors, and things that go bump in the night, all while trying to maintain good grades and graduate. Enroll at your own risk. In East Texas University Fresh Blood, you are an unsung campus hero investigating the local mysteries, monsters, and mayhem everyone else refuses to acknowledge. Fresh Blood offers a well-rounded syllabus of character creation, new edges and hindrances, gear, setting rules, and tours of the campus and beyond. The curriculum also includes refined mechanics for parties, exams, cell phone coverage, and everything you expect on a modern campus. The Encyclopedia of Miscreants is sure to light a creative spark in even the most humorless campus parking enforcement officer. But maybe don't tell them about updated rules for rituals and a little thing that Pinnacle Entertainment Group likes to call high strangeness. Wonder if getting high has something to do with that. Finally, you can expect a full class schedule of adventure with all new Savage Tales, a new adventure generator, and a new 8-semester plot point campaign. You'll have enough coursework to carry you through graduation and right on into grad school, if you can't escape the halls of education. The Kickstarter project is fully funded. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover book for a $50 pledge. Of course, once again, there are various different pledge levels. There's, pawns, and I want to say, I think it's an accessories box that's being offered with this. It is not a box set. I was kind of surprised by that. But if you want to just grab the hardcover book, you can do so for a $50 pledge. If you want to score everything new in PDF, you can do that for a $40 pledge through May 29th. Actually got the date on this one down. The expected fulfillment is February of next year for the physical products. I want to say, I think the PDFs are probably slated. I think the PDFs are slated like October. So kind of cool. So nice to see this is getting a Savage Worlds Adventure Edition buff up. Because as far as I understand, I think East Texas University was the previous edition of Savage Worlds. And I also believe that it had quite a lot of content released for it. So nice. All right. So Scott Pyle says, I think it was Warhammer the Old World. Yes, if I have an opportunity to review it, I will review it. So yeah, there is absolutely no doubt about that. And some discussion of rat catchers in Appalachia. So kind of combining two of our news pieces tonight. All right, that is it for the news this evening. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang Thus, the Dispatch is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit Drive Through RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on a majority of those sales. And all those commissions really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Of course, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. And of course, if you're watching live and you're taking part in chat, by all means, sprinkle a little of those little hearts and stuff, show a little engagement in chat. And if you are watching on a mobile device and you have some hype points left, if you can, throw a few my way. Everything helps. As far as engagement is getting this in front of people who are not familiar with the Gaming Gang. So there you have it. Now, of course, if you happen to dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a couple of other ways you can support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Damn, that's refreshing. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. All that information can be found down in the show notes. Also in those show notes is an invite link to our Discord server. Certainly join up, absolutely free. Just come on, hang out with the gang. It's kind of a cozy place. Not like thousands and thousands of members. I think we're at 150 people, something like that, which is cool. That's cool, yeah. Get to be notified of all the news pieces and when the videos go live and some conversation about games and comics and movies and so forth. So you want to hang with the gang? Pop on over to Discord. And speaking once again about our Patreon, I do want to mention, as I do in just about every live stream, I want to give a tip of the cap to our Patreon members. So a big thank you to Ben Oldthwaite, Kuval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavallo, Kevin King, GameCat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Far Drift, Pete Strakulich, the Tabletop Scholar, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, the Madman, and Flint Fireforge. Thank you very kindly for your continued support by way of Patreon. All righty. So, as I mentioned, tonight I'm going to roll out a new series, and I'm calling this Forgotten Tabletop Role-Playing Game Favorites. And it's important that you keep in mind, these are games I have some sort of experience with. So I got, I want to say, I think it was 3 emails today and a couple of comments on the community post about tonight's show, recommending, oh, hey, I'd like to see this and this, whatever. And I know one of them was the Fantasy Trip, which is from Steve Jackson Games. And if you're not someone who's real familiar with the channel, I don't cover Steve Jackson Games. There's just a mutual dislike. Not with actual Steve Jackson. I've never met him. But I've made my mistakes. They've made their mistakes, but still. Anyway. So that's one that I wouldn't do. Rollmaster was another that I have absolutely really no interest in that game system. Just it gotta be something that's gonna interest me, or something that I had some experience with back in the day, such as, like, say, Top Secret. that is a possibility of something that we'll kind of talk about in the future. So I just wanted to kind of lay some of the groundwork for this new series. And once again, maybe a couple of episodes a month. This isn't going to be something where it's like, oh, it's the new everyday show. No, not at all. So just want to let you know, it's got to be stuff that I actually have some sort of experience with in the past, as opposed to, oh, hey, well, this game's been around for a long time. It's still around. But as far as tonight's giveaway, I'm going to give away a couple of copies of the 4th edition of the Morrow Project. It's important for you to understand it is a pay what you want over at Drive-Thru RPG. So you can actually get the 4th edition of Morrow Project absolutely free if you would like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give away a couple of copies, and I am going to make a $5 purchase on each of those so that the publisher is going to receive something from what I'm giving away. I know you might be sitting there thinking, well, I can just go get it for free, Jeff. Right. I understand that. But I thought, well, yeah. I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't have any idea of how well supported it is. I honestly don't think it probably is very much anymore, because I think the 4th edition came out about 13 years ago. I don't know. Cooperative Waffle says some bridges are best left in the past. Yeah. Yep. Pete Stracklich and J-Man have popped on into chat. So welcome to you both. So this is the trivia question for tonight. And because the Morrow Project is a setting which takes place after a nuclear war, I'd like to know, what are the names of the 2 television films? One was in the US, one was in the UK, one was 1983, the other was 1984, that essentially terrified everybody who watched them, and it was about nuclear war. So, first person to give me the US movie is going to win a copy, and the first person to give me the UK movie is going to win a copy. And now I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Let me show you something I'll bet you've never seen on television before. This, a glass of beer with practically no foam. No, sir. You always see beer in commercials with about this much foam. That's because every brewer tries to brew beer to look like this, because foam is part of a good glass of beer. Ask any brewmaster, or ask me. I'm a pretty good authority on beer myself. Now, if you've noticed that the foam on Budweiser is pretty special, that's because Budweiser is Beechwood aged, an exclusive process. It takes more time, costs more money, but you can taste the difference. Well, here, taste this. That Bud, that's beer, right?
Yeah, I'd like a hamburger.
As you speak.
You already made it?
We already made it.
When?
What time is it?
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock? We made your hamburger 11 o'clock.
So if I want a hamburger made fresh, I gotta come at 11 o'clock?
Our 11 o'clock hamburger, we made at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
It's like 10, 11, 12, or vice versa.
So I gotta come at 10
Our
o'clock.
10 o'clock hamburger, we made at 9 o'clock.
I gotta be here for lunch at 9 o'clock?
Look at it this way, you beat the new time crowds.
At Wendy's, your hamburger is always made fresh the moment you order, and not a second sooner. The others can't promise that.
Want some Wilkins coffee with your strawberry shortcake?
Can't say that I do.
You can't say that you don't either.
This is television of the future.
And here's a sneak preview of the new shows you'll see on Tunnel Vision, 1985. On Mondays, laugh it up with the best of Marie.
Just one little hug.
Followed by Knocked Up and On the Run, the Pregnant Man. It's hilarious family entertainment with those cut-up cuties on Charlie's Girls.
Woo! Romanian scumbag.
Then, catch the scintillating wit and warmth of Ramon and Sonia.
Mafungo Mats.
It's rib-tickling humor at its best.
That was good work, Lieutenant Jackie.
My pleasure.
Buzz with the Fuzz on Police Comic. Then, join our in-focus news team of crack reporters in the field and in action.
Let's go shoot up.
Tunnel Vision, the No Bullshit Network. See epic blockbuster movies made especially for Tunnel Vision.
I won't tell you anything about the plot.
Direct from Matt, it's the Rolling Star on Saturday night.
Hi, I'm Chevy Chase.
Chevy. Chevrolet.
Learn wetback English and evade the Border Patrol.
So this year, say hi, Bawar, and tell them Leon sent you.
Western Union Marijuanagram.
Thanks, Bob.
This is Tunnel Vision.
I can show you a good time.
Yes, during the early to mid 1970s, there was a kind of just a string of comedies that came out that were like almost like skit based. Some of them were like spoofs of television shows like Tunnel Vision. Keith was also mentioning the Groove Tube. That was another one. Yes. And then what is it? I think it's 1990, Amazon Women on the Moon, which is hysterically funny. And I would have actually shared the trailer to that, but amazingly enough, in the trailer, there is an extended shot of some like full frontal nudity. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. Yes, Kentucky Fried Movie. I think that was the first one I remember ever seeing. And I would have shared that trailer with you, but it was setting off the copyright. So I was like, God damn it. Hey, we don't have to always have like a horror movie or like weirdo B movie, stuff like that. So Kevin R. Smith points out Kentucky Fried Movie and Amazon Women on the Moon were both directed by John Landis. I think you are correct. I know Amazon Women on the Moon was. Yeah, that's a I haven't seen it in years. I should probably watch it again. Just for that full frontal nudity. Now, it was actually pretty funny. And I remember they, like, throughout the film, it's like a movie within a movie is the Amazon Women on the Moon. So it's like a takeoff of those 50s science fiction movies where, they go to Mars and people live there. Scott Pyle says, send him to Detroit. And yes, Arsenio Hall. Something like the man who had the worst day in the world or something like that. Pretty funny. Yes, Ed Begley Jr. as the deluded invisible man. I remember that. Oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna bust that out. I'm gonna see. Maybe it's even available to watch for free on YouTube. I don't know. It's new. So tonight we're rolling out the first in a new series, Forgotten TTRPG favorites. And we're going to talk about the Morrow Project because I have some nice warm nostalgia for the Morrow Project. Probably misplaced, to be very honest with you. So we do have our two winners with the correct answers. Yes, it was The Day After and Threads. I remember seeing The Day After when it aired, and it was like yikes. And it was pretty interesting because of role-playing games, and I'm a big history buff and military, I would read all this military stuff. I kind of had a better feel for what an atomic war would actually consist of, And I was still like, ooh. Honestly, I saw Threads maybe about 10 years ago, and I think that was a little more disturbing than The Day After. I got to be honest. So our winners here, Harvey Chuckles and Max Apocalypse. So as always, just simply shoot me an email at jeffmcaleer@thegaminggang.com, and I will get you links to copies of the 4th edition of the Morrow Project. So I remember the Morrow Project. I don't remember who picked it up originally out of our group, out of the Gamers Guild group, which was our high school gaming group. I don't remember. I don't think it was me. I think it was our friend Scott Weagle, who on occasion will pop into chat here. I think it was Scott, but I had it. I know I had it as well. And I think maybe our friend Tim might have picked it up also. So the premise of the game, the game itself came out in, I want to say 1980. And I think it was originally going to be a novel. And somebody convinced the author into turning it into a role-playing game. So when it came out, I want to say, for one, it was a soft cover, and it was maybe 80 pages. Now, I noticed that the 4th edition PDF is 330 pages, so there's a lot in there. Because funny enough, the Morrow Project, the 1st edition core book, as I remember it, was focused on the premise as well as combat and the various different teams. So essentially, the 1st edition was published by a company called Timeline Ltd. And in fact, the 4th edition is also Timeline Ltd., but I think it's completely different. I think it's completely different people who've put together the 4th edition, and I think they're using the Timeline Ltd. Maybe they purchased the rights to use that publisher's name. So yes, W. Forge points out the Morrow Project was Fallout before Fallout. W. Forge also points out, you didn't hide under your school desk in case of a nuclear attack, did you? I seem to remember doing that twice in grammar school. But it was, and then we started doing drills where we went down like into the basement, because I went to a small Catholic school. So the school was actually part of the building that had the church. So I think all in all, maybe there were 300 students in the school. So our lunchroom was like the basement. And we used that as like our auditorium and stuff like that. And we would also go down there like if we had like a tornado drill or something. But I do remember we had emergency drills where we did go down there, and yes, we hid underneath the lunch tables. Max Apocalypse was asking who won the trivia contest. Well, since Max Apocalypse doesn't know they won the trivia contest, I guess we're just not going to award them a prize because they were outside. They left. Guess their smoke alarms went off. Hopefully everything's cool. Hopefully everything's all right. I don't necessarily mean cool. That was kind of a weird way to put it. Yes, Max Apocalypse, you were one of the winners. You and Harvey Chuckles. Cooperative Waffles, wasn't it in a Ziploc bag? I don't remember that. I don't remember it being in a Ziploc bag. I think the adventures were. I think the adventures were actually in Ziploc bags. Because I had 2 of the adventures, which we'll get to in a minute. So, 1980, game comes out. I probably picked it up. It would have been 81, 82-ish. I think I hit it my freshman year, so that would have been 81. Or maybe actually, because my freshman year was 81, 82. Yeah. Carry the 1. Anyway. So if I remember correctly, the original core book was maybe about 80 pages. And the premise is, and I think the premise has changed a little bit because I've heard like the premise of the Morrow Project now or more recent editions, and it doesn't really ring a bell. It's close, but not what I recall. And I could be wrong because it's been decades since I actually read the core book. But the premise is that I want to say it's kind of like a Howard Hughes-ish character who's very, very rich, has like these really powerful computers that are predicting when Armageddon is going to take place, when the next nuclear war is going to take place. And I hate to break it to everybody out there. You know, I love to bring you folks down just one time every episode, right? If a nuclear weapon gets launched, I mean, we're talking reality. If a single nuclear weapon got launched, the odds are pretty good that is going to be the end of all humankind, all life on this planet. I'm just saying. Because so many of these nations do not trust each other. So even if some rogue nation decides they're going to launch a nuclear strike, say on the United States, yeah, we're may not be a singular nuclear weapon going off. Anyway, so the premise is to ensure that civilization survives. And I don't remember if it's just all civilization or if it's the American way of life. I don't remember which of the two. But this billionaire, trillionaire, whatever, with these, supercomputers, they've also been able to perfect cryogenics. So what they do is they find people to join the Morrow Project to be cryogenically frozen, and then they'll be thawed out. If I remember right, I think it's 10 years after a nuclear attack. So if I remember correctly, in the first edition, it's not like they know when the nuclear war is going to start. It's like just they're planning ahead for it because they figure, okay, this is going to happen. And that's why the Morrow Project is formed and all these members joined up. And, a lot of them are military, ex-military, scientists, because the purpose of the Morrow Project is to try to return humanity back to civilization. So, I mean, their bases are like underground. If I remember right, they're called like bolt holes. And that's where all their gear is kept. That's where they're frozen and stuff like that. And their goal is to just like bring life back. So, I mean, there's all kinds of agricultural seeds and stuff like that are all packed in with them. And there's different kinds of teams. So there's the recon team, who is supposed to awaken 6 months before the other teams so that they can kind of scout out what's going on. And all this is supposed to be like run from this prime computer, like Prime Base, I think it was called, if I remember right. So there are no like mutants and things like that. So this falls into science fiction along the lines of the various different novels that came out. So at like 50s and 60s, we'd see some come out where it's like, okay, so if there was a nuclear attack, or if there was like an EMP, which wiped out, like systems and things like that. It was more along those lines than its Gamma World, right? So it was supposed to try to be pretty realistic. So what happens is these different teams are cryogenically frozen. The nuclear war takes place, and somehow the Prime Base computer miscalculates things, and rather than awakening the teams 10 years after the war, it's 150 years after the war. And then you've got the recon teams, you had science teams, and then you had the Mars teams. And the Mars teams were like military. So I know, from what I understand, a lot of folks out there, their teams tended to be like role players out there. Their teams tended to be Mars teams, because the Mars teams also got a transport vehicle that was kind of like the vehicle in Damnation Alley. So, whereas the other units and that, like the recon and stuff like that would get, the equivalent to like a Humvee. Not that they existed back then, but you know what I mean? It's, small armored personnel carriers, stuff like that. But the Mars One vehicle was, like just rocking out weapons and loadouts and stuff like that. Agile Monk is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. The Tabletop Scholar has joined us as well. So Cooperative Waffle says, what is the series after nuclear attacks by homegrown terrorists? It was set in a small town community. There are quite a few, like post-apocalyptic series. What is one of them? And I think Graphic Audio does like the series. It would almost be like, The Destroyer. Oh, look, it's short 200-page novel number 170. All right. So that is what, the Deadlands? But I think there's like real big science fiction elements to that. Yeah, Jericho was a show that wasn't that CBS? That was supposed to be post-apocalyptic. So as Cooperative Waffles points out, like kind of Twilight 2000 style. Yeah, where, I mean, Twilight 2000 is considered science fiction because it's an alternate history. But yeah, sort of the same lines. So I remember a couple of adventures that I had for it. One was, I'd say it was the Liberation of Riverton. And another was, I don't know if it was sort of Damocles or if it was just Damocles. So as far as the role-playing game itself, it was really focused on very realistic combat. So you could take any firearm and you could simulate that firearm. And trust me, we actually did pick up like gun books, like gun catalogs or whatever. And what you needed to know, I want to say it was the size of the round and the muzzle velocity. I think it was muzzle velocity and the size of the round divided by a certain number. And that gave you like the penetration factor of the round. So I know a lot of people out there talk about old classic Traveler and you're rolling up characters and your character could potentially die during generation. Well, the Morrow Project was a sort of game where you created your characters. Thankfully, it wasn't a very complex process, but you created your characters, and then it would not be unusual in the first firefight for them to get killed because it was very, very realistic. So there were like I seem to recall hit locations, and you get shot once, and it was very possible that would be the end of you. So anyway, some of the things I remember most about the core book was a lot of attention devoted to where the warheads would land and how they would land. And it was kind of like, oh, wow. Okay. So I also remember how there wasn't much outside of the combat aspect. So as far as other sorts of action resolution, it was not very well structured. Originally, there were no skills or anything like that, which was kind of unusual for a game where the player characters are essentially parts of these teams because of the skills they possess. Right. And then I remember that Timeline Limited came out with, I think they called it an expansion. And what they had done is I believe they had paid Chaosium Inc. for the rights to use what's now known as the basic role-playing system to create all these different skills. So your character creation changed massively. So I remember that was like a really big step forward for the Morrow Project, because outside of combat and the premise of the setting, the core rulebook really didn't have much. I mean, it was mainly, like I said, it was devoted to combat, the premise of the game, as well as there was a lot of page space devoted to where the warheads would land. So I remember playing it a few times. I don't remember running it. And it's kind of funny because I do remember I was ready to run it. And it was going to be my best friend, Elliot, and another real good friend of mine, Daryl, were coming over to my house, and I was going to run it. And I had set up where they were a recon team, and their bolt hole was actually buried underneath a lighthouse. And what had happened with the attack, the nuclear war, I guess there was, if I remember correctly, I had it set up where the lighthouse itself had mainly collapsed, as well as part of the bolt hole. So the vehicle and that was all gone. And there were some other members of their team who had been exposed, that, you know, their cryogenic chamber had been destroyed. So it was just going to be the two of them. And then Elliot didn't come over to my house. I was like, what? And then, of course, this is way back in the day when people didn't have cell phones and stuff like that, right? It's probably like 1982. And it's like, calling his house. No, he's not home. He must be on his way. 3 hours later, he's not there. He ended up going out with his girlfriend. So I do seem to recall I did start running the adventure I had come up with, though. So Danny Gable's with us in chat. So yes, Cooperative Waffle says Jericho is the series. I never watched that. Said Deadlands is pretty good. Great if you like Casca and the Detroiter. Yeah, the Detroiter series. The Destroyer series. Cooperative Waffle says Horse Lords is a series that gave us values for the Morrow Project. Are you talking about the book series, Horse Lords? I seem to remember that from back in the 80s or so. W. Ford says they remember Twilight 2000 had a stat called RADS. It was a way to determine how affected you were by radiation. After gaining too many RADs, your character would die. Yes. So there you go. Cooperative Officer says, yeah, Elliot went to go hang out with his girlfriend, didn't he? Yep, that was it. That's what happened. So anyway, but still, I got to say, I think that was the only time I looked to run it. Because even way back then, I was running Call of Cthulhu. I was still, picking up role-playing games here and there. And I was normally the sort of player who would go and pick up like core books or, like box sets, like Top Secret had a box set. If somebody was planning on running it. So yes, Cooperative Waffle says, yes, Horse Lords, the book series. Yeah, I remember reading a few of those way back in the day. Back in the day when we didn't have the vast variety of science fiction and fantasy available. I mean, there was a lot out there, but it wasn't like we had easy access to it. You had to go to the library, or you had to go to a bookstore. And if the bookstore didn't carry what you were looking for, womp, 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 you were out of luck. W4 says, I think I'm one of the few people that like Remo Williams based on the Destroyer series. Well, that is Remo Williams, right? He is the Destroyer. But he had what? He had Max Boland. Those were really popular back in the day. You had, the Executioner. Was that Max Boland, or was Max Boland just Max Boland and the Executioner was somebody else? Because I really didn't. I did read some of The Destroyer. I think I read maybe the first 6 books or so. And I was in high school when I read those. But yeah, those are the kind of books that now get written for graphic audio, where a lot of people who spend a bunch of time on the road tend to purchase those to listen to. Cooperative Waffle says they mixed Morrow Project with Aftermath or Gamma World because they wanted mutants. You know, I thought I had heard somewhere down the line the Morrow Project got mutants. I don't know. I have not taken a peek at this 4th edition of the Morrow Project that I'm going to give away the 2 copies of. I haven't taken a peek. I'm probably going to grab it. But I thought I heard somewhere along the line that there were zombies, or maybe somebody had done some sort of like third party, non licensed thing that brought zombies and stuff like that, mutants and stuff, to the Morrow Project. I don't know. But I remember there was the Liberation of Riverton adventure, which I want to believe was like you were taking on a warlord and you were trying to liberate this small town, village, essentially now. And then I don't remember what sort of Damocles, whatever it was called. I don't remember what that was about. Now, I remember there was one, I think it was called King of Chicago, which, funny enough, I never owned. Lived in Chicago, didn't buy that. But I also remember there was a website out there. I don't know if it's still around. It's probably been maybe 5-6 years since I actually saw this. But there was a website that was out there, and it was for the Morrow Project. And I think it was a collaborative effort. And it had all this detail about all these places around the United States. So you could go check out a state, and then that would lead you to various different areas of that state. So they had like Chicago, and it was like page after page after page of like backstory about Chicago and the warlords who were, fighting for control of the city. And I was like, holy cow, man, these people are putting a lot of effort into this. But I gotta say, as far as the Morrow Project, I do realize now that it wasn't a great role-playing game, especially when the first came out, the core book, the first edition, because the focus was so heavy on combat and modeling wounds and damage and things like that, that the other aspects of role-playing really weren't part of the book. But you also have to keep in mind that this was a time, figure 1980, this was a time where role-playing games were birthed from war games and miniatures games. So it doesn't surprise me that it was so focused on the combat aspect. But the thing I always remember about Morrow Project was that the combat was fast, really deadly. There were no hour-long combats and stuff like that. Now, granted, it didn't move as quickly as, an abstracted role-playing game would. But because 1 or 2 hits would usually take somebody out, I mean, you could get through combat pretty quickly. So I do really remember that. And I always thought that the premise for the Morrow Project was really its big selling point. That the players were members of the project. They were a team. They had their assignment of what they were supposed to do, because you had the various different, you had recon, you had science, you had Mars teams, you had like specialty teams that maybe they were like medical units and stuff like that. So pretty interesting premise all in all. But as far as like mechanically, it was kind of a clunker. Although the skills expansion using basic role playing did help out a lot, I still think mechanically game was kind of clunky. But I got, really fond memories of the Morrow Project. And yes, you can still get the 4th edition PDF if you're tuning in a little bit late. It is pay what you want over at Drive-Thru RPG. So I had my giveaway tonight. I'm giving away 2 copies and actually going to do $5 on each as a pay what you want, so the publisher gets something out of it. I don't know what kind of support it has anymore. I saw that there was a zine. There was an issue of a zine. And I think there were player character sheets, and that was about it. So, sadly. But yes. So our first forgotten TTRPG favorite is The Morrow Project from 1980. Peaceful Porcupine's with us, talking about Top Secret. That is probably going to get an episode. We won't discuss the most recent iteration of it unless something has changed, unless they change that up. Let's see. Harvey Chuckle says they traded their Gamma World in at a game store in 2001. Hopefully you got a few bucks for it. Stainless Steel Rat series. W. Forge is asking, who remembers that? Harry Harrison? Hell yeah, baby. I read all of those. That was one of my favorite series. And it was nice that it was, I guess I would say family friendly for the most part. So you could recommend the books to anybody. So yes, definitely dug that. Tabletop Scholar says they've seen a couple of copies of Top Secret. How does it play? Would it be an interesting historical piece? Well, I would say, as far as Top Secret goes, I did not run Top Secret. I owned it. I had the box set. But I didn't run it. I want to say that might have been our friend Tim Phelan who ran that. It was either Tim Phelan or Scott who ran Top Secret. Maybe they both did. Maybe that's why I can't remember exactly who it was. But there were some issues of Dragon that had expanded rules and expanded concepts for Top Secret that worked really nicely. And I do remember when we would play Top Secrets that those issues were used. So, and yes, Top Secret, well, I always thought it was kind of funny how back in the day, TSR had Dungeons and Dragons. They had Top Secret. They had Gamma World. And they also had Star Frontiers. And if I remember correctly, because it's been a long time since I saw Star Frontiers, I thought Star Frontiers used the D20 just like Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, Boot Hill, another one I'm forgetting. But maybe it's Gamma World also used 20-sided die. what I'm getting at is I was really kind of surprised at how different mechanically the games were from each other. Whereas nowadays, for most publishers, if you came out with a game and it was popular and you wanted to do some offshoot genres, you would probably stick with the core mechanics of the game that you created, and then of course tweak them for whatever the genre is. W4 says, don't forget Gangbusters. Yep, Gangbusters as well. But I'm kind of looking more earlier on, because wasn't Gangbusters a little bit later? Didn't Gangbusters come out about 84-ish? So as far as I remember with TSR, you had D&D, and then Boot Hill, and Gamma World. So I thought at one point it was those three games. And then I think they still were doing Metamorphosis Alpha at that point. So yeah, so that's what I mean about kind of surprising. You know, Boot Hill doesn't use the same mechanics as Dungeons and Dragons. Top Secret doesn't, because Top Secret's percentile. Like I said, I don't remember mechanically how Star Frontiers was. Wasn't Gangbusters also percentile? Because a lot of these I have not taken a peek at since, they came out, or like 2-3 years for some of the ones that, maybe we played quite a bit. Because we played a good amount of Top Secret, I seem to recall. We were also very big on Cult of the New. So we go way back. So yes, Cooperative Waffles points out Star Frontiers replaced Metamorphosis Alpha. Yes. Peaceful Porcupine says they spent way too much time playing Palladium games. They also did a lot of GURPS, which is apparently getting a revised edition soon. Same system, but an editing pass. I don't know. So W4 says, yes, Gangbusters was percentile. So it's kind of funny because as far as the TSR games go, the majority of them did not use the same mechanics as their most popular game system, which nowadays would be very, very strange unless you are a company that was publishing other people's products, that stuff wasn't being designed in-house. So Cooperative Waffle says, Boot Hill, didn't that use 3-18 as far as the abilities? Well, it may have. I just recall the first Boot Hill was more combat simulator than anything. And that's why the core book itself, the booklet itself, rules-wise was pretty slim. But as far as the actual shootouts and historical and fictional shootouts and the historical and fictional characters and that, there was quite a lot of that. But it was more as I looked at it more like it was a war game than anything else, than really being a role-playing game. I think it was later editions of it made it more a role-playing game as opposed to just, just basically shootouts and stuff like that. At least that's how I remember it. I could be completely wrong, because I probably haven't looked at Boot Hill. Maybe 83. So that's how long ago. All righty, that is it for this time out. If you were watching live, hey, thank you very much. If you were watching live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. Because not only are you keeping me company, You're also keeping each other company as I'm sharing the news or pontificating about a topic. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. And of course, when you're not watching videos here on the channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you enjoy the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. If you ring the bell, select all notifications, and you just might be lucky enough for YouTube to decide that they are going to let you know not only when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings here on YouTube, but it might consider you worthy enough to notify when I share other videos, such as my recent Kickstarter preview of Tom Clancy's The Division role-playing game from Arcane Asylum Publishing. All right, everybody. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.